Hello to you, I do hope you're well, and a very warm welcome to this GCSE and A-level theology revision session taking a look at natural and revelation theology. I'm Ben Wardle, and in this quick fire revision session we'll be taking a look at the central debate between the natural theologians who believe God can be known by humans through nature and through the revelation theology approach that states that it is only when God reveals himself to man that he can be known. So who are the central figures? Because whenever I study this topic, I always like to think of it as a bit of a debate, and the central characters in this debate, on the natural theology side, we've got Emil Brunner arguing that God can be known through nature, although he does recognise the limits of natural theology. And then on the other side of the ring, we have got Karl Barth, who absolutely rejects natural theology. He says absolutely not, there is no way, and he blames the fall, bringing in St. Augustine here. He blames the fall, remember Genesis, when man fell from the goodness of God due to sin and lost all knowledge of God. Karl Barth says God is wholly other, and so we cannot know God through nature. We are so corrupted that we cannot know him through nature, that we can only know him when he chooses to reveal himself to us. So it's the natural revelation debate. How can we know God? So let's kick things off with natural theology then, shall we? Because a key man who is influential on both natural and revelation theology is John Calvin. Now, John Calvin wrote in the Institutes of Religion that there is a sensus divinitatis at the heart of all of us, the seed of religion. And basically what he's saying by that is when God, Christians believe, created man, he left within him some sort of mark of his creation, some sort of sense of himself. So for example, you know, when you buy a Burberry scarf, it might have a little Burberry logo on there, or when you buy a nice new Louis Vuitton bag, it's got the Louis Vuitton logo on. So in the same way, God has left some link to him in his creation. He's left some sort of awareness, some sort of sense, some sort of presence. And for Calvin, it's the sensus divinitatis that enables us to have a knowledge of God. And he explains this in 3 parts. Very important, the 3 parts of the sensus divinitatis. Kicking things off, we have got the aesthetics. So when we look at the world around us, and we're linking this in, of course, to Paley's design argument and Aquinas' way from design, when we look at the world around us, we have this feeling it's being created. So then the use of analogy, comparing the world to a watch by Paley that's been so perfectly designed. It can't be here by chance. There must be a creator. There must be some sort of being with infinite intelligence that is behind this amazing world in which we live. So aesthetics, by the beauty of the world, by the beauty of creation, it leads us to believe that there is a God, to give us some knowledge of God. And this is supported by then the second of those 3 steps, intellect. The idea that the intellect we have, the knowledge we have, the God-given intellect, all part of the sensus divinitatis, gives us knowledge and an ability to use our keyword reasoning to understand that up there must be a God. So remember Aquinas' 5 ways. Motion, causation, contingency, perfection and design. The 5 ways of Summa Theologica. They are all about using reason. He's not requiring faith. He's not making radical, crazy statements. Well, some people would say he is. What he is seeking to do is use reason. Use your intellect and your powers of understanding and thought to prove that God must exist. And that is all part of the sensus divinitatis. The intellect is essential for gaining a knowledge of God, for knowing your creator. And then number 3, the conscience. This idea that we have a conscience, a higher level of morality, that deeper level of processing and evaluation of what we do, the decisions we make. It's evidence as part of the sensus divinitatis explanation from John Calvin of a God, the idea of a presence, a voice, that God exists and that we have an awareness of that existence as the creation and with the sensus divinitatis. So supporting this is biblical evidence. In the Psalms it says that the heavens proclaim the glory of God. The idea that if we look in creation around us, you would see evidence of a designer. You would believe that the world has been created, and that is natural theology. It's very open natural theology. Anyone can come to know God because everyone can experience nature. If they come to that conclusion that there is a God, then that is how they come to know God. And of course, Aquinas and Paley use their very famous analogies, the arrow and the archer, the watchmaker. The idea that from the world around us, we can know something. Remember, Aquinas was very clear, you cannot know the real nature of God, but you can know something about the designer. So there is some way in which the natural world reveals something about God to people. This is supported by tradition. You know, Aquinas' teaching has been central to the Christian faith, central to the Christian traditional understanding of how God can be known. It makes sense because we've got a brain, so why would God create humans with such an intellectual, complex and reasoning mind if he didn't want them to use it? So surely Aquinas' 5 ways work. There should be some sort of contact and connection between God and his creation. You know, so if we're talking about Aristotle's prime mover, for example, very remote, very exclusive. You don't get to talk to the prime mover. All the prime mover does is exist, operate as the final cause of the universe, and thinks about itself. The Christian God as depicted in tradition in the Bible is not like that. The Christian God instead interacts, engages, connects with creation, and so it would make sense that the world around people would give them an opportunity to understand, know, and connect with that creator. And the numbers of people that use natural theology, it cannot be underestimated how many people go, wow, you know, have a numinous experience, see the world around them and think this is amazing, this can't be it. Now, we can argue here, well, that doesn't mean that you necessarily then believe in God. You might just be like, I'm so happy to be alive. If you're a Buddhist, you might be like, I'm so happy to be part of the karmic cycle, for example. It doesn't necessitate a belief in God, certainly not in the Christian God, because actually natural theology has many, many critics, no less than David Hume, for example, who said, well, is it really one God that created this world? Why not many gods? Because it's so complex, surely many gods would have needed to have created it. John Stuart Mill said, actually, nature kills. How on earth can you say that this world was created by a God when really it's filled with suffering? That God must not be omnibenevolent. So actually, do we have a use of natural theology in leading to the Christian God? Can we actually say, yeah, if you look at nature, if you look at the world around you, you will come to the conclusion there is a Christian God. But that is the argument put forward with Calvin's Sensus Divinitatis, with Aquinas' 5 ways from intellect and aesthetics, Paley's way from the design of the world, the necessity of an intelligent designer, for the natural theology approach. Switching over to the other side then, and you've got Karl Barth, and he was very, very, very critical of the natural theology approach. He believed that the fall, that act in Genesis, where there was a disharmony created between man and God because of the sin of Adam and Eve, that act meant humans lost all knowledge of God. Now, Emil Brunner responded. Brunner and Barth were head to head on this issue, and Brunner said, hang on a minute, we must be able to retain some perceptibility of God, that's the key quote, in his design. He said there must be some way. He recognised it must be flawed, but there must be some way. They cannot be polar opposites. Why would God do that? Barth, however, said, yeah, that is the case. The fall has meant all knowledge wiped out. People do not know God through nature. They can't come to know God. Instead, flips it on its head, God has to reach out to you. You can't know God, he has to reach out to you, because crucially, faith is a gift. And if we think about ideas on limited election, put forward by John Calvin, among others, the idea is that being saved is a gift from God. You're not worthy through your efforts. So Pelagus said, you're worthy through your efforts. You can achieve salvation through your efforts. This was heavily criticised by Augustine, Calvin. They would say, no, the fall means everyone is flawed. It is God's decision to reach out to you. And the same is about knowledge for revelation knowledge. God chooses to reveal himself to certain people through the gift of faith, through the Holy Spirit. Big point is the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, and crucially through Christ. Barth sees Christ as key, as an example of revelation. It is through Christ coming, God reveals something. It is through Jesus Christ, Augustine, and the fall that there is redemption and salvation. So the importance, therefore, of Jesus Christ in Christianity. You can't just know God through looking at the world around you. You can't be like, yeah, that tree tells me God exists. Yeah. No. It requires the necessity of revelation, an act, an action from God. And for Calvin, for Barth especially, it is through Jesus Christ. Barth is very famous for saying that there is the holy otherness of God. God is completely unknowable to us, but through Jesus Christ and through the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, we can gain some sort of knowledge of God. But God is the one that chooses to reveal himself to us. And that is all because of the gap of the fall. So the fall, he says, disproves natural theology. We are so flawed we cannot know God in this way. Instead, there has to be that revelation. However, this undermines God's omnibenevolence, does it not? It suggests that he chooses to reveal himself just to certain people. And in the same way, we can criticise the limited election doctrine as being very limited and unfair. This seems unfair. Why would he just say, I'm going to reveal myself to you? I'm going to reveal myself to you. Again, the idea of the fall. Everyone is flawed, and so any knowledge you can attain is a gift freely given by God. It also presents Christianity as the supreme religion. It's a very exclusivist position. So whereas natural theology, you could justify belief in maybe different gods or beliefs in different religious traditions, with revelation theology, the focus is on Jesus and the focus is on the Holy Spirit. These are very exclusive to the Christian faith. They are concepts not found in other religions. And so if God can only be known through Jesus, that creates that exclusivist approach to ideas of religious pluralism, of religious tolerance, of religious diversity, that it is Christianity that is the exclusive holder of the truth. See all these synoptic links we're making here? Honestly. And it does, though, for Christians, have a positive there because it highlights the importance of Jesus Christ. It shows why he is treated as so important in the Christian faith tradition. It also recognises the limits of language about God, which we can link into religious language, and the idea of the via negativa, the apophatic way, and God is indescribable. So the use of analogy to try and make comments about God, for example, you can't do that. God instead has to reveal himself to you. So a very, very fierce and passionate debate there between the natural theologians, God can be known through nature, through aesthetics, intellect and the conscience, and the revelation theologians. It's only when God chooses to reveal himself through Jesus or through the revelation of knowledge and information to you, remember his choice to do that, that you can attain knowledge of God. So that's some of the key points in knowledge of God for theology. Thank you very much for your company. I've been Ben Wardle. Follow me on Instagram, BenWardle_, or on Twitter @BenWardleUK. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day. Bye bye for now.